Welcome to episode 64 of the Fit Strong Women Over 50 podcast. Hi, I'm Chris. Thanks for joining the podcast for the Becoming Ellie community.
And I'm Jill. Want to know who Ellie is? She was the Norse goddess of aging and beat Thor in a wrestling match. I think it goes without saying that people were surprised, but you know what? No one ever says if Ellie was surprised.
Yeah, that's right. Perhaps she knew she was fit and strong enough to beat Thor. Jill and I thought we'd like to become like Ellie, and so we've worked hard to become more fit and strong. Well, it seems like we're always striving to be fit and strong.
Yeah, it's not easy, is it? Chris and I created the Becoming Ellie community to help others join us in this journey. You can find out more on our website, becomingellie.com. There's lots of articles and links to the different podcast episodes.
Please feel free to sign up there for our emails to find out about the latest podcast episodes and blog posts. And you'll also be able to find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest. A shout out to our friend Jane, who said, out for a walk today and really enjoyed your conversation. Jill, enjoy your puppy as she will grow fast. Chris, I agree that masks are becoming a fashion thing. The mental game in this being fit and healthy is a long game for sure. And one thing I have found that has helped me get through all of this is 3 or 4 girlfriends who are willing to walk, ride bikes together in small groups. Thanks for the good conversation, as I felt the two of you were walking right alongside me. I just love that comment because that's how I feel about this too. It's sort of like a walk and talk.
Yeah, I agree. And that is actually what we're sort of striving for, I think, with our podcast. So it was nice to hear.
Yes, definitely.
I wish I could actually be on that walk with Jane.
I know. Sharing things with friends, especially stressful things, kind of makes that whole stress dissipate. And so I hope that lots of our listeners think of us as friends, along on their walk or their car drive or even when they're working out.
Chris, I'm really excited about today's guest. She is someone who is all about being fit and strong after 50.
Yes, she is inspirational and so willing to share her knowledge. Let's go to the podcast.
We're happy to have Marcia Kadens join us today. Marcia is a Chicago area mom of 2 teenage daughters. She's a fitness enthusiast who decided to run 1 marathon for the bucket list in 2007. Since then, she's run 14 full marathons, including the 6 World Marathon Majors, as well as hundreds of shorter races. She shares training and fitness tips, as well as healthy recipes on her blog, Marcia's Healthy Slice. And she shares workouts designed for women of a certain age on the Marcia's Healthy Slice YouTube channel.
Marcia, I've been a follower of your blog for a very long time, and we're so happy to have you join us. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I love being here.
So, Marcia, you've run the 6 World Marathon Majors. That's just amazing. Can you tell our listeners what those races are and how you actually get to participate in them?
Sure. They're Chicago, New York, and Boston here in the States. And then there are London, Tokyo, and Berlin abroad.
Wow.
Yeah. And basically, some of Chicago, a lot of them have gone to lotteries. In fact, maybe all of them have gone to lotteries. Back 10 years ago, that was not the case. So, but now, Boston has a very rigorous qualifying time, as does New York. And London and Tokyo have become so wildly popular that I think even in their lottery, only 1% of the people who try to get in actually get a spot. So it's become quite a highly sought after thing to do.
Wow.
So I know Boston was the first one that you did, but how did you decide to set a goal of running all of the World Marathon Majors?
Well, actually, Chicago was my first. It was my very first marathon. And I think when I read that was the one for the bucket list because I'm a Chicago girl. It was my hometown race.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So that was the one marathon for the bucket list. That race turned out to be ungodly hot, and it was canceled when I was at mile 22.
Oh,
Now, a
no.
runner doesn't run 22 miles to stop it with 4 miles to go.
right.
So, I mean, they let me finish, and I finished. And of course, I said I was never running another marathon again.
Well, if it's too
But
hot,
then I
it's
knew
sure
I
not
had-
fun, is it?
Oh, it was miserable. But, in a way, it kind of played in my favor because I had nothing to compare it to. So I didn't know just how awful it was.
That makes sense.
Right? Yeah.
yeah.
So because that one was so ridiculous and I felt like a failure, even though the weather is completely out of my control, I had to do another one. And that second one is where I qualified for Boston. And when you qualify for Boston, you have to run Boston. So that's how I ended up with more marathons. And I think when I qualified for Boston, that's when I kind of shut off my mouth. And I said, well, if I can do Boston, then I'm going to do all the majors. So that's when I set the goal. And I think that was in 2009 or 10. So it took me 10 years to finish those 6 majors.
Yeah, I saw you did the last one last year, 2019.
Yeah, I did. Last year I did Tokyo and London, thank God, because this year there are no races.
Right.
Right. Wow.
It's amazing.
So you did both of them in 1 year. That's impressive.
Yeah, it was one of those things where I got what they call the sparkly unicorn spot. I actually got an entry to London just through the lottery, which is unheard of because most people need to do a charity and raise money and I got that unicorn spot.
You're not kidding. If they're both 1% of the people that apply, that's really amazing that you were the 1% twice.
Yes.
Especially in a year when the following year with the pandemic, there's no races.
I know. I mean, I honestly feel like it was the universe's way of being like, Marcia, you need to wrap this up. So, when you have the opportunity, you've got to take it.
Yes.
I'll say, yeah. Which one of these races was the most memorable for you?
That's so tough. I mean, Boston was surreal because that's a goal I never even set for myself. I never dreamed I would be a Boston runner. So showing up and riding the bus to Hopkinton and walking to the starting line was like an out of body experience because I never in my wildest imagined I would be able to run that well to be in that field. So that was incredible. But then in London, it was incredible too. It was also surreal to, you run past the palace through the big roundabout and you finish on that Royal Mall. That's pretty surreal too.
Wow. Let's go back a minute to, so you ran, your first marathon was Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
Then you ran a second race, and it was at that race that you qualified for Boston?
Yes.
So you must have been pretty speedy for that second race.
I think that's an understatement. That's really good.
I just found the training plan that was right for me. And I mean, I won't lie, I trained my tail off. I worked really hard. I just checked all the boxes and I arrived at that finish line or at the starting line as well trained as I could possibly be. And I was just so hungry for redemption after Chicago, after the heat in Chicago just completely obliterated me. Heat just does a number. I was lucky to finish Chicago. So,
sure.
And I'm honestly, a perfect storm needs to happen to have that kind of race where, the conditions were everything. So I chose a race that was a week or two after Chicago in Grand Rapids, Michigan. It was on shady trails with fall colors. It was so much, I think it was 40 degrees where Chicago was 93 degrees.
Wow.
Yeah,
so, a lot of things a lot of things fell into place for me to have that perfect race. And it really was. It felt like so much less effort than Chicago did and in almost an hour faster time. So, yeah.
Wow. That's impressive.
So when did you begin running? Were you in high school or?
I ran middle school track and then I didn't run again. I refused to join the high school track team. I don't know. I was doing other things, dancing and figure skating and things like that. I didn't really come back to running until I was in my 30s. I have a history. My dad's side of the family has heart disease and type 2 diabetes and obesity. And I knew there would come a day where I needed to figure out a plan so I didn't follow in those footsteps. So I started running in my 30s to lose some weight and to really just figure out a path away from that, because his sisters all died in their 50s. And here I am. I feel like if I didn't do something, I would be, following in those footsteps. So running started in my 30s. And for a long time, it was 5 and 10K, a few miles on the treadmill. It was walking and running and throwing that towel over the treadmill because it's so hard. I mean, it really is hard to get started running.
When you say throw the towel over the treadmill, is that to hide the numbers so you don't see it?
Yes. Yeah, I couldn't stand how slow the time was passing and how little ground I was covering. So I would just put the towel over the display so I just didn't see it.
I have done that where it's just more painful to have that display in front of you.
You know what? I should try that. I've never thrown the towel over there. I just stare at it and go, "Oh, I can't do that." I let it get to me, and so I just got a new tip here, and I don't know why I never thought of
it. Yeah, definitely, it's worth doing because there are days where you think, this is the longest 2 minutes I've ever had.
And you're not even close to done. And yeah, it's very mentally challenging.
Yeah, that's true with all of those. So even, whether it's the elliptical or I do that with the rowing machine too, because it's just better to let your mind go elsewhere, and covering it helps that.
Yep.
So what are your plans for running in the future?
Things have really changed for me since hitting menopause. I mean, I will never say you should never run a marathon, but for me personally, running that kind of distance doesn't serve me with my health goals going forward. So I will always run. I will run as long as it feels good to do so. But I think I'd like to keep it. I mean, since London, I've been keeping it to usually an hour or less. So I don't really run much over an hour anymore. So I'm back kind of where I started in the 5K, 10K, and I've really embraced trails because now I run for joy, certainly for health. But you're not going to get any healthier running more than an hour. I mean, that's more for your mental state and for accomplishment. So, I mean, all the health benefits are there when you're running an hour or less. And that's where I am now. I'm really enjoying myself. I'm enjoying trails and, relieving stress and all of that. And that's my goal for running now, is more to coach others to enjoy it and use it for health benefits.
So you really aren't planning on doing more marathons?
I am not. I won't say I will never run another marathon. I mean, if an entry to the Patagonia Marathon fell on my lap today, I would take it.
Sure. Yeah, that's right.
So I'll never say never, but I have no plans at this time.
Okay. And is the trail running a new thing?
I started using running trails when I was training for the Marine Corps Marathon, actually, back in 2012. And it was a very hot summer. And I just said, you've got 18 or 20 miles to run. I figured I'm just going to go to the trails. I'm going to freeze my beverages. And you just have to put a strategy together. And running trails in summer is just so much cooler. Right. And you could circle back to your car and kind of regroup. And that's when I kind of fell in love with trails. And so this summer was hot. It is hot still. So I've been almost 100% on trails this year.
Yeah. Well, in the intro, we mentioned that you have 2 teenage daughters. Do they run?
My older daughter ran track in high school. She was great. And, I love to travel. I think running is the best way to see a city that's new to you. So I went to Ireland and I ran, and she loves to travel, but not necessarily run. So it was kind of like I told her, you can come with me if you run the 5K while I do the half or the marathon or whatever. So she's a short distance, a sprinter and a jumper, but a begrudging distance runner, meaning she doesn't run more than 5K.
Yeah.
And my younger daughter pretty much it's a hard no.
Got it. Well,
so I'm not going to force it, as long as you find what you like. I'm not going to force running on anyone. So
Sure. Well, what do you tell them about being fit that you wish you had known at their age?
I think they take so much for granted because I think when you have a role model, because my parents were very sedentary, so I never had that positive role model, but it's kind of the reverse. You kind of have the negative role model, so you learn what not to be. So I think, because my husband and I both, we've definitely, I mean, if we're not running or doing strength training, we're out walking. We walk every morning and every evening. So I kind of don't really tell them anything. I just kind of lead by example. They see what we do, and they both come down here at our little home gym, our little workout room in the basement, and they do what they like to do. So it's kind of unspoken.
Got it.
Those are probably the kinds of things that you'll see as they get older. They'll come to it in their own way, whether it's running or something else. But yeah, I think when you are a role model like that,
it becomes normal. It's part of
right, and
life.
That's something they'll remember throughout their adulthood. Here on the Fit Strong Women Over 50 podcast, we tend to have two different kinds of guests. The first kind are experts in a particular field, whether it's training or nutrition. And the other type of guests are women who do incredible things. And you seem to fall into both categories. You've accomplished a lot for yourself, but I see you offer lots of great information on your website. And as you just mentioned, you are a running coach. Can you tell us about coaching and about the different services that you provide?
I coach mostly women over 40, but not necessarily, that's not necessarily all I do. I'll pretty much take on anyone. And, I will coach whatever someone will throw at me. And someone had come to me and said, I want to run this 3-day thing in, I think it was Colorado or Montana or someplace out there, some beautiful thing where they get up and they run 19 or 20 miles a day for, over the course of, and then they camp out at night and then they start again in the morning. And I just love seeing the adventures women want to go on. And I would never discourage anyone from doing those things. So I put together a plan for her, and it was amazing. Yeah, I live vicariously through my clients sometimes.
Sure.
That sounds really exciting, but I'm not sure that I would have that in me.
Right. I mean, I don't see myself doing that, but hey, you go, girl.
And so the coaching, is it all local in person, or do you do virtual coaching? Or
yeah, most of my coaching is virtual, actually, online. So I work with women all over the country for all sorts of goals, whether it's getting out there for their first 5K or something like I just said, where they're doing this multi-day endurance event.
Right.
Well, our listeners are typically women over 50 who are interested in being fit and strong. And so what advice would you give particularly to that group?
My first piece of advice for women, especially over 50, is you've got to keep the muscle on your body and continue to build it. It's so important because we lose our muscle mass. And if you don't have your muscles, you're more injury prone. You are more prone to fall down and injure and fall down and break something. And that is a major setback for us. So I would advocate for strength training. I really think that's how I got to Boston as quickly as I did. I was hitting the gym regularly. I was actually more of a gym rat before I was a distance runner. And I think my muscle mass helped me be a stronger runner. So my first piece of information is you've got to get in the gym and do some resistance training and keep that muscle from wasting away.
Resistance training is strength training?
Yep. You got it. Whether it's dumbbells.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dumbbells,
resistance bands.
Good. So it's important for us to be doing muscle building as we age.
Yes. Yes. My second piece of advice would be you've got to honor your recovery. I have so many clients still who say, I don't need a recovery day. Yeah, you do.
Yes.
Yeah, you do. They're like, my legs just want to fly. It's like, well, no, you need to take a recovery day. It's so important because you're tearing your muscles down. You've got to give them that time to build back stronger, or you're going to be injured again, and then you're going to be set back, and nobody wants that.
2 good pieces of advice. Yeah. Thank you.
So I love your YouTube videos, and you have lots of strength workouts there. I think we just sort of said why we should be doing strength workouts, but do you have any suggestions for those of us who don't have access to a gym right now?
Yeah, it's funny because we canceled our gym membership, but again, we're blessed with a great home setup here. It's one of the best things we've ever done to this house is put in what we do because we certainly use it. But I know it's hard to get dumbbells and kettlebells right now, but
Yeah.
even if you, like I think I say on some of my videos, if you've got a milk jug or a detergent thing, just a heavy something to use until you can get yourself a set of hand weights, just something to resist. And there's a lot you can do with body weight as well. It's not fun, but hey, it has great results like the push-ups and the burpees and things like that. Push and twist and
Oh,
get up.
Right.
it has not once occurred to me during the whole pandemic that I should be doing burpees.
I think
The push-ups, yes,
anything
but-
to avoid burpees. Those are my.
I hear ya.
The only thing I like less than burpees are sliders.
Oh, yeah.
Those little sliding discs that. And I know people have told me you can use a paper plate, but I conveniently forget that when I'm doing my workout. Oh, golly.
Wow.
Well, let's switch our focus a little bit. I know that you've lost weight and been able to keep it off. So what advice can you give us on either losing weight or maintaining a weight loss?
Definitely hitting 50 and hitting menopause kind of pulled the rug out from me because I was running marathons, and you feel like if I'm running for 3.5 hours, how can I not look like I work out, or how can I be gaining weight? And there's such an interesting thing that happens with women in menopause, especially, and it's because our estrogen drops. We don't dissipate our cortisol, our stress hormone. And when cortisol is high, that's when we store fat. So for me, it was learning that equation of working out smarter and not harder, because that's why I said marathons don't really serve me anymore. That kind of extended oxidative stress makes my cortisol, you start approaching adrenal fatigue. And that's when you're so tired and sluggish, and it's just too much. And that's how I feel right now with training, because you spend at least 4 months in marathon training with these long runs every week. So as a woman of a certain age, you need to honor that more isn't necessarily better. So you need to be smart with your workouts.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. I've struggled with cortisol myself. That stress hormone just makes me wake up in the middle of the night and just doesn't dissipate like it used to when I was younger. Let's put it that way.
Yep.
So for advice on losing weight or maintaining the weight loss, your advice would be to not push as hard, but I don't want to put words in your mouth.
I mean, you need the intensity. You need a day, maybe 1 day a week of an intense workout, like a high intensity interval kind of thing. Or you could, if you're a runner, you could do speed work. That serves us well. It's where you have to be careful is the really high mileage, the long, slow, distant that just wears you down. That's really not, everybody's different. I can tell you it certainly doesn't serve me anymore, where in my 40s, it was fine. But now all of a sudden, it's like, all of a sudden I've got this spare tire, and you're like, what am I doing? I can talk about sugar all day long. There's certainly things that my body doesn't tolerate as well as it used to as well. There's certainly things we can talk about dietary that we need to do.
Yeah. Back to the marathon, the long distance running is obviously stressful on probably all bodies. But as we get older, back to sort of that recovery, it takes us longer to recover from all that stress.
Absolutely. And that's what's so hard about social media, because you'll see people that are doing running streaks and back-to-back marathons and all this stuff. And you just have to know what's in your best interest and what's really not. And, that's not necessarily the smartest thing for them to be doing either. So you just have to know that what you see isn't necessarily what you should do.
Yeah. Well, I think that everyone's body's a little different in terms of how their hormones are reacting to different situations. I've seen people that just the running doesn't seem to bother them in the least, whereas other folks, do much better with, a whole different regimen.
Absolutely. And I think it depends too on how long you've been running and how much you've been doing. I've seen a lot of women, or maybe not a lot, but a few women who are well into their 60s before they run a great marathon.
Right.
But then again, they're very new to running. So I don't know. Like you said, everybody is very different. And also, I'm a hypothyroid girl, so Hashimoto's thyroiditis. So I deal with autoimmune issues. I've been dealing for 15 years. So I think maybe my menopause is different from other people's menopause because I'm dealing with that as well. So the workaround of autoimmune disease is also interesting and challenging.
Sure.
Yeah, that does complicate things, that's for sure. So what about fueling for runs? What do you do when you're racing, or you just have a long run?
Fueling is very individual. So what works for me won't necessarily work for someone else. It's basically depending on the length you're going. Like say I'm going to do a marathon, hydration is so key. Electrolyte balance is very key. Just finding it while you train, that's your time to rehearse what you're going to do on race day. So that's when you figure out what's going to work for you. So you have to pay close attention to how you're fueling, carbs, protein mix, what kind of, refined carbs or high fiber carbs sometimes cause a problem. So I think of your training period as your rehearsal for what you're going to do on race day. So everybody's individual. So that's why I hesitate to say, do this and this and this, because you just have to figure that stuff out for yourself.
Okay. Yeah. Well, what about electrolytes? So you mentioned electrolytes. Do you recommend anything, or what's your advice on making sure you're replenishing your electrolytes?
Definitely watch all the sports drinks. Again, you have to figure out what you will tolerate. But even like the week of a marathon, I will make sure that I'm not just hydrating, but I'm also doing an electrolyte drink. So it's got the sodium and magnesium and things that you lose during sweat. And it's certainly in summer, you have to be even more careful because that electrolyte balance will get off and you will feel not so good.
Yeah, definitely.
For sure. What about normal days? Like how do you normally eat? I know some people really like paleo, others are vegan, some folks, what's a typical day of eating look like for you?
At the beginning of the year, because I had thyroid antibodies that were very high, my endocrinologist put me on this autoimmune protocol diet, which was very, very restrictive. And it was 6 weeks. But I got through it and I felt amazing. And I've kept, I don't stay with that. You're not supposed to stay with that protocol all the time, but I've definitely kept some things in there. So since then, I've gone gluten-free and soy-free, which my thyroid likes. And what a couple of times, I think I've tried 2 different stints of intermittent fasting, which I was an abject failure on. It just did not work for me. From the beginning of time, I would go out and do my morning run fasted, and that always worked for me. But after menopause, that's when I started piling on this weight, and I was working out the same way, and I just couldn't figure it out. Well, in the intermittent fasting, I wouldn't lose anything. So it turns out it was quite an epiphany for me. It was, I need to eat a little something now before I head out, and it buffers that cortisol.
Okay.
So just a little, like even like a little bar or a bite, or, just even 100 calories, just something before I head out. Yeah. Just really serves me well. So that was a big aha moment for me. No more fasted running, and intermittent fasting doesn't work for me as an autoimmune person.
That's interesting because everybody's just a little bit different, and you really have to experiment, don't you, to find out what works for your body.
Right. I thought, because you read about all these wonderful health benefits of fasting.
Sure.
And I couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong. And finally, somebody said, you need to buffer that cortisol. So
Chris and I talked to someone on a earlier episode, and she said she did intermittent fasting, but that she eats early in the day so that all of her workouts are fueled. And then as the day goes on and she quits working out, then she also quits eating, which sort of goes along with what you're saying, is that needing that fuel at something around the workout. So that's interesting.
Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah, it is really interesting because it's sort of counterintuitive to everything you read.
Yeah. And the autoimmune issues is also affected by the intermittent fasting?
I guess so. I mean, that's when I learned that as an autoimmune person, when I was doing this autoimmune protocol, they said, oh yeah, no, don't be doing the fasting. You need to add up. I mean, now my diet is more like a high protein, high fat. I'm more of kind of a keto-ish eater. I avoid sugar and refined carbs, and I'm gluten free. So that's been very effective for me.
Okay. What about dairy?
I'm okay with dairy. I don't have a ton of it, but I
Uh-huh.
don't. It was weird because when I would talk to my endocrinologist, she's like, you should be gluten free. And I was like, but I feel okay. I don't feel bad because I thought you would have like this irritable bowel and this horrible thing. But when I did that protocol, I felt even better. I felt great. So gluten free is the answer for me.
Okay.
Wow.
You do have some great recipes on your website, and I just wondered if you have a favorite go-to recipe you could share with us.
Oh boy, don't have it off the top of my head. I mean, lately I've been doing a lot of grilled fish.
Oh,
I was always kind of a preparing fish at home. I was always afraid of that because the fish was never fresh enough. So I've come across this delivery service where these small boat fishermen in Alaska catch the fish and blast freeze it, and it's delivered to your door. So it's the freshest, most delicious fish I've ever
really?
had. And I've
Wow.
learned this year how easy it is to prepare as far as putting it on the grill. It's just a matter of a little olive oil with some garlic and some citrus zest like orange or lemon. Pour that on the top, throw it on the grill for 10 minutes, and it's easy and so delicious. So, I was always the person who would eat fish in a restaurant but never have it at home.
Mhm.
But it's great. And when I learned about this, cod, and black cod especially has more omega-3 than salmon. So
Wow.
for women of a certain age, again, omega-3s are so very important.
Right.
And just so you know, if you can find black cod, it is a great, great source. So that's simple. Fish is simple and easy, especially to grill in summer at home.
So would you share that website address with us, the small boat fisherman in Alaska, or is it a secret?
Oh, sure. No, it's called Sitka Salmon Shares. So Sitka, because it's from Sitka, Alaska, salmonshares.com. And
Awesome.
that is that. I actually have a discount if anybody wants a discount code.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's you just use code capital MHS for Marcia's Healthy Slice, and I think it saves you $25. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, we'll be sure to put that in the links. That's great.
Yeah, it's really, like I said, I was so impressed with the quality of this fish. And
Yeah.
I love that these are just family fishermen. They actually tell you who caught your fish, which was so
Oh,
cool.
that's really neat.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like, where did my cow eat breakfast? That's great.
That's funny. So, Marcia, I've found that people will define the word fit all different ways, and I'd like to find out how you define the word fit.
I think fit, it comprises so much. The first thing that comes to mind is mind, body, spirit. You can be physically fit, but not mentally fit. And I think fitness also involves your relationships with people, your community. There's so much more than just how you look.
Mm-hmm.
It's how you feel, it's your mindset, it's really everything about your life. There are so many aspects of fitness.
Thank you.
If our listeners want to follow you or ask some questions, how would they find you?
Can always find me at marciashealthyslice.com. That's my blog. And you can email me through there. And I'm also on YouTube. The YouTube was kind of a pandemic project, but I definitely want to keep that going because I think there's a need. I mean, I certainly, when I hit menopause, was lost as to why has everything changed, and I'm doing all these things and nothing seems to be working. And doctors kind of say, suck it up. You're lucky you only gained that much. Most people gain far more. And you just feel like, well, what
Well, doesn't that make you feel good?
no. And you're just like, you don't get it,
Right.
So I just think I just want women to know that somebody gets it.
Yep.
A lot of us understand the feeling, but there's not a lot of women who talk about it.
Yeah. People don't talk about it because you feel like your body has, just turned on you. It used to be so
Right.
strong, and all of a sudden things are not working.
Right. And you just feel kind of embarrassed, and people are like, oh my God, she let herself go.
Right.
I hate that term. She let herself go. It's like, oh
Oh,
God.
yeah. You sort of said this, but I'm not sure we actually asked it specifically. So to deal with the effects of menopause, you basically sort of tweaked what you were eating
Mm-hmm.
and you changed how you were running. You went back to the shorter runs
Yes.
and continued to do the strength training.
Yes.
Does that pretty much sum it up? And did that work for you? I mean, like, did you improve from how you were feeling when you first started into menopause?
Yes, when I got into menopause, I noticed my running times were just falling off of a cliff. And I described this to so many doctors and running coaches, and you just get the doe in the headlights because they don't know what the heck you're talking about. I said, I feel like when I take in oxygen, I'm just not processing it into energy. And I think menopause combined with the thyroid issues, I just felt so sluggish and tired all the time. And I would just kind of throw myself through these trainings because you feel like, you've got to keep moving. And that is the right thing to do. You need to keep moving. But cutting back my running and focusing, just keeping the muscle on my body. And then when I changed my diet, I did that 6-week protocol and I dropped 15 pounds and I've kept that off. So
Oh,
I do think
It's great.
for me, getting rid of the gluten and the carbs and, really being much more honest about my sugar intake, those have all helped me immensely.
Yeah, that's great. And I think that there's a lot of listeners that are nodding their heads as they're driving their car or doing their workout or however they're listening to us, because what you're saying really resonates. So marciashealthyslice.com and the YouTube channel, we'll put both of those in the show notes so that people can just click through for everyone to find. And we'll also include that fisherman's site with your discount code. So thank you
Yeah.
so much, Marcia, for being on our podcast. We really appreciate it.
It was my pleasure.
yes, it's been great talking with you.
Thank you, Jill.
Thanks again. Bye-bye.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Bye. Marcia is amazing. She runs all those marathons, including all of the 6 world marathon majors, and then decides that's no longer working for her and goes back to shorter runs. I love that she felt able to decide what works best for her and not worry about what others might think she should be doing.
Yes, there's no doubt that menopause can cause some issues for women. She's absolutely right that we all have to figure out what works best for ourselves and do that, whether it's food or fitness.
Yeah, I like that. I've been working on getting back to running, though without a race to train for. I noticed that I'm running up to about 3 miles and that's it. I'm not really pushing myself. Maybe I'll just do like Marcia and commit to running no more than an hour. I sort of like that plan. So speaking of what works best for ourselves, Chris, I see that you've written on our blog about getting in some major walks lately. I love the photos you shared.
Yes, I'm finding that nature really helps me get a better perspective on life, and going out and walking on some trails and getting fresh air and being in nature really helps me to, feel more normal during this pandemic and some of the other challenges in life. And you probably saw too that I've been carrying some weights or having my weights in my car for when I go, that I kind of combine it with my strength building, do some exercises.
That's great.
One thing that I kind of was surprised about that I've been doing is working on my balance, because, as we age, our balance changes a bit. And so I've been doing the hand weights and using my marching, like standing on one foot and then do some arm reps, because it really throws you off balance when you do that. I know some people can do it on a Bosu ball, but I'm just struggling with the ground that doesn't move.
That's good. So I have this little trampoline thing that I bought years ago at like Aldi or someplace. And I said, I don't even really know what I'm supposed to do with this thing. And so finally, years later, I looked at the instructions, and one of the things they said was stand on it, improve your balance. So I get on it and stand on one leg, and it's sort of like being on a Bosu ball because it wobbles. So I haven't put the arm weights then. But that's a good, I like both of those things. So,
Well, it really challenges your balance and those tiny muscles that, are difficult to really get a little workout in.
yeah.
I know when I was going through physical therapy for my Achilles tendon, one of the exercises they did was to have me use a regular pillow, like in your living room, a couch pillow or something, and stand on it barefoot, preferably. If you used a shoe, that gave you more stability. But if you did it barefoot and then lifted one leg, and be able to touch a wall so that if you start to fall, you don't fall.
Right.
But, that really helped my balance. And I found that helps, like even when you're practicing for doing the yoga, some of the yoga things are kind of one-footed and then the other foot's up and back. And your arms,
that's good. I used to stand on one leg when I would brush my teeth.
Oh, what a good idea. You're standing there anyway.
Maybe I should get back to that.
Well, especially, your arm's moving back and forth.
Your arm is moving.
Well, unless you have an electric toothbrush. I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm finding that I'm not doing the running, but I'm definitely doing walking. And I have enjoyed several bicycle rides, not as long as I usually do, but still, I love that feeling of being on the bicycle. There's something about the repetitive motion of, your legs pedaling and just having the scenery go by. It's so soothing to the soul.
Yes.
I just love it.
Marcia mentioned that fish delivery service, and I think I'm going to check it out. And it seems like such a great idea. I love fish, and I rarely cook it at home, though I do buy some salmon. But I have to say the black cod sounded great.
And I love the idea of grilling it outside so the kitchen doesn't, I don't know, when I cook, sometimes I burn things, But I like the idea of cooking fish outside. That's appealing to me.
Yes, I like cooking things outside. And I got a new grill this year, so I'm enjoying grilling things.
Yeah, I've been using my slow cooker and cooking up chicken breasts that I have bought on sale and then having that ready in the fridge or even in the freezer, like freezing cooked. But I usually go through it too fast so I don't freeze it. But it really helps to just be able to throw in some fresh grilled vegetables or some roasted vegetables. So that's kind of what I've been doing for this summer is meal prepping and then just adding to it.
Yeah, I like having the cooked chicken because then you can throw that on top of a salad. You can just cook something else to eat with it. I like that. And I've just been cooking mine in the Instapot.
Yeah, I'm looking for some new ideas for summer recipes that are easy and travel well.
Good idea. I wonder if our listeners have any good ideas that they could share. I could use something new too.
Please do, whether it's on our Facebook group or our Facebook page, or you could even give us a call and let us know. If you have food ideas to share or any way that you've adjusted your fitness regimen to being over 50. Please let us know. You can leave a voicemail at 330-970-6662.
You can also join our private Facebook group and discuss it there. We've got some good ideas from that group.
Yes, we're always happy to hear from you. Well, we'll see you at the next episode of the Fit Strong Women Over 50 podcast.
Until then, take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.